you need the employees to own it. They have to really
Right.
feel the ownership of safety is my responsibility. You have to instill that in them that, listen, safety isn't here we're not here to discipline you if you're doing something wrong. Safety
Right.
is so you can go home and see your kids at night. That's what it's
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
You have to get them to think that way. And it's a challenge, but it's a fun challenge, you know?
Hello, and welcome to the Elevator Careers Podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group. I am your host, Matt Allred. Does your workforce need a lift? At the Allred Group, we are committed to connecting your company with top talent that matches your needs. Give us a call at 404-890-0445. In this episode, I sat down with Mike Luraschi from TEI to talk about safety in the elevator industry, including how it has evolved over the years and why complacency creates the biggest risks. We also discussed safety resources for small companies and why mental health support is essential for making sure everyone gets home safely. Mike, welcome to the show.
Oh, hello, Matt. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
You bet. No, it was great meeting you in California. It's fun to catch up again and learn a little bit more about what you're doing there at TEI and how you're keeping the workforce safe.
Yeah, thanks. That was my first spring conference with the NAEC, so that was a great experience. I'm looking forward to many more.
Awesome. Yeah, they're a lot of fun. I mean, it's a great group of people, and I think my first one was like 5 years ago, and I was a little apprehensive at the time. I was like, yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to see a recruiter guy show up, right? But they were friendly as could be. Nobody ever, was mean, rude, or anything. I mean, it's just,
Not
well,
very, very welcoming, very nice.
absolutely, yeah, welcomed me as part of the family. So been going ever since, and it's a lot of fun. But I do want to talk more, about you, your career, and obviously the work you're doing at TEI. And you had mentioned that you'd work across not just major companies, but also military time, right? So I'm curious, what do you think keeps people in the elevator industry, even though they may move between different firms?
Yes, this is kind of like a third career because I was military originally, and then I worked on the railroad before I came to elevators.
Sure.
But now I've been in the industry, in the elevator industry, almost 15 years, and that time split up pretty even between Schindler, Otis, and TEI. But what you see, that's very common in the industry. You see that all over the place, in the office environment and in the field. They're competitive companies, but it's the same workforce, and we're all. It sounds funny, but we're all a big family. In the end, you get to know the people you work with, and then as you go from one company to another, you always carry those relationships, and it's a positive environment, which is great. Like, your competitors on paper, but the elevator industry is it's I don't want to say it's non-competitive. It's like people are there to help each other out, which is it's a great feeling. And especially in the world I live in of safety is not proprietary. Like, no one company owns
True.
safety. You don't compete on safety. Safety it's universal, and it's something we all share in common. We all have the common goal to get everyone home safe every day. And not
Yeah.
even the companies, also the unions. If you have a unionized workforce, the unions want the same thing. They want to protect their workforce and get everyone home safe every day. So it's a great environment to work in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one thing I want to talk a little bit about is obviously safety has changed over the years. And I'm sure you've probably seen it in your time as well, right? Changing, just that it seems to be becoming more important. So we'll kind of dig into that as we go. But are you seeing that on your end as well? That this is something we need to focus on?
Oh, absolutely. Safety is definitely evolving. I come from outside the industry, but even in the time I've been here, 15 years is a little bit of time. You see the turnover of the generations, and you see as the older generation is moving out and the younger generation is coming in, you have the passage of knowledge, which is huge because you don't really go to school to learn how to fix an elevator. You learn it from the mechanic you're working with. They pass that along. And safety is the same thing. No one goes to school and learns elevator safety. You can't get that course at, Indiana University or something. They just don't have it. So
Right.
you're learning from the people around you and the experience around you. And coming in, that's something I really enjoy is, I want to learn something every day. But you're surrounded by a lot of really, really intelligent people and just try and picking that up. And yeah, safety is it's definitely evolving, it's growing, but it's positive. You try to
Yeah.
work safer every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I mean, you didn't set out to work in safety, right? I mean, you came in as a superintendent. You'd, like you said, you'd been in the railroad, the military. How did safety kind of come about? Why did you lean into that?
I Well, presently I work at TEI, but when I came to TEI, I was a superintendent. So I
Okay.
worked as a superintendent at Schindler, at Otis. I came to TEI as a superintendent, but through succession planning, I kind of fell into really good luck. Ray Downs is a juggernaut of the safety, in the elevator industry, and he was looking to retire, and that's some really big shoes to fill. So I kind of got really lucky, and I worked under his wing for 2 years. And it again, I don't think if you look around and you ask all the safety directors and VPs of safety in elevator companies, none of them started as a safety person. No, everyone either came from the field or they came from another industry into the elevator industry and found themselves in the safety role. So it's a unique blend of people and, again, a unique blend of experiences, which makes it fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've talked to Ray and know Ray, but and he had talked to me about kind of his experience. I think in automotive before he got into elevators, and I'm curious, for you, what did learning directly under someone like Ray teach you about safety leadership that maybe some people don't get exposed to?
It's honestly, it was great working directly with Ray for that long of a period. You see the ins and outs of safety as if you're reading it out of a book. You understand that side of it, but there's a very human side of it. And you have to connect with people on a personal level. You have to get to know the person, get to know their family, because you want employees that understand the rules, of course, but you also want employees that understand it's their behaviors that are going to make a difference out there. And that's one of the big things Ray always taught, and he still does to this day. To this day, Ray will still call some of the field foremen we have in the field and just check on them and say, "Hey, how you doing today?" And that's something he's passed along, and it's great because if the employees of the field guys really believe you care about them because you do care about them and you can get it across, they're gonna include that in their decision making, and it's gonna guide their behaviors, which in the end is what you want to do as a safety professional is get people to make safe decisions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, they're having to choose safety, right? And I think that's we talked a little bit just briefly about how that culture has changed, but I think even in my own life as a kid, right, we didn't wear seatbelts, right? It wasn't a thing, and then all of a sudden there's this law, and then I remember as a family we kind of embraced it and just said, hey, we want to be safe, right? And we just never thought about it, right? But it's I think once you choose to work safely and do have to do it every day, right? Because one day where you choose not to, that
Right.
might not get another day.
A lot of that, it comes down to habits, right? Like
Sure.
if you were a kid and every time you got in the car you didn't put your seatbelt on, then the day you had to put your seatbelt on, it was a change. You're like, hey, what am I doing? But nowadays we teach our kids the first thing you do is you put your seatbelt on. So they build those good habits early in their career. And that's the idea of how to really teach, especially the young new people coming into the industry, teach them the good habits right away. That way they it's second nature. And when safety becomes second nature and you're not thinking, oh, I have to do this, you just do it almost as a reaction. That's a victory. That's that's
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
that's what we
Well,
want.
one thing that's unique about elevator work is that it's very decentralized, right? You've got people scattered all over, not just the city, but multiple cities. And not only that, you can't just drive by and glance. They're hidden, right? They're in a pit, they're in a shaft, they're somewhere where
Yeah.
most people can't even get there if they tried to. And so, how do you actually enforce safety when it's so hidden and no one's watching?
Right. It's very difficult because if you had Yeah, if you had a warehouse environment where there's an assembly line, a supervisor can walk right up and down the line and look at
Sure.
20 people in 10 minutes and say, "Oh no, you need to put your glasses on." But the elevator industry as a whole is so decentralized that you may have a two-person team working in one building and another two-person team working 5 miles down the road. And, if you have 30, 40 employees working for one superintendent, there's no way that super is going to physically get eyes on those people and be able to check on them. So what you have to do is you need the employees to own it. They have to really feel the ownership of safety is my responsibility. And that's again, it's going to affect their behaviors, but you have to instill that in them that listen, safety isn't here for we're not here to discipline you if you're doing something wrong. Safety
Right.
is so you can go home and see your kids at night. That's what it's
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
You have to get them to think that way. And it's a challenge, but it's a fun challenge.
Sure. Well, and yeah, it's rewarding, right? When everybody's safe, right? And it hurts like anything, like when somebody's not safe, right? It's like, okay, you know. So what's interesting too about safety is it's not just the pit, the shaft, but you're in charge of drivers. You're in charge of ice in front of the office. You're in charge of, ergonomics on the keyboard.
Oh
Kind of
yeah.
everything.
Yeah, absolutely. The Field Employee Safety Handbook is produced by Elevator World, and
Sure.
it's a wonderful book, and it has the 9 safety absolutes, and it tells you all the different steps how to get on a car top or how to do lockout tagout. But if you look at where all the injuries coming from, half the injuries may be from a slip, trip, and fall when somebody's right. It's an environmental factor, or they're in a car accident. So those types of things, they're not in the safety book, but if that's where half your injuries are coming from, you still need to focus that, especially in your safety training, in your toolbox talks, and, in just your daily interactions with the employees.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I mean, just safe lifting, right? They could be moving weights in and out of a truck in the parking
Yep.
lot and haven't even gotten to the elevator yet, and
Yeah.
somebody's got a herniated disc or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And those types of the ergonomic injuries, the back injuries, the knee and hip injuries, those are the ones where you're going to be lost time. You're not coming back to work for a long time. And that hurts. It hurts the employer, it hurts the company because now you're trying to backfill that position. You've lost that experience. They're get the schedule shot, but it hurts the employee because now they're at home. And if they're collecting workers' comp, they're not making living they used to make, and you still got to pay the bills and feed the kids, and there's a mental aspect too. When you get injured and you're at home, in your head you're thinking, oh, it can get to you. It can really get
Oh,
to
yeah,
you.
yeah, big time. Yep. No, very, very true. So I'm curious, what makes safety unique in this industry compared to others you've seen, such as military, railroad?
Well, you go military, railroad, and elevators. All three are dangerous. They're
Sure.
inherently dangerous. There are life threatening hazards everywhere you look. The biggest difference and the challenge I had with coming out of the military, you have something that's called an acceptable level of risk. So in the military, you signed on the dotted line and you swear, you defend the country. So there are going to be serious injuries, and you understand at some point there are going to be casualties. Even in peacetime training, I've lost close friends in a helicopter accident during peacetime. That's not during war, but in that environment, it was an acceptable level of risk. Everyone, it's sad, it's a tragedy, but you move on because you kind of expect it in the back of your head. Once you get into a regular, like in elevators, there's just zero acceptable risk. It's intolerable. You cannot accept any level of risk to both the employee while you're working and to the general public. You're providing a service, at the escalator, the elevator. If there's a question in the back of your head of whether or not that unit is safe, no, you need to shut it off and lock
Right.
it and tag it out and let somebody know. You can never put it yourself, someone you're working with, or the public at any level of risk. And it was something that in the beginning I had to learn because
Sure.
it's different than the military for sure.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting to just hear you say it that way that, zero level of risk, but I don't know, maybe it wasn't always that way. I mean, just industrial accidents in general, right? 100 years ago was a totally different ball game,
Oh yeah.
and so it's obviously good that, hey, this that we're going to value human life more than we did even 100 years ago, or 50 years ago, right? Let's take it serious. I There was a gentleman that I talked to on the podcast, or we were just having a conversation. He said that when he was trained, he was just given a safety belt.
Yeah, and that's you don't have to go back that far in time to find that. Now
Right.
you like the 80s and the 90s, that's a long time ago, but you can go back 15, 20 years and there are a lot of people going to work and they had no safety bag at all. Just here's
Mm,
your hard hat, get to work.
right.
And that's one of the best things that's happened with not just with safety, but just in preserving the workforce. And it's great. I think that's beyond just elevators. It's not just our industry that's doing that. You know, OSHA has a big part of the enforcement, but at the same time, you have to believe it. When OSHA is just check the box, that's one thing. But when you go out there and you show people why the rules are there, like here, this rule is here because if you do not do it, this is going to be the consequence. And that's the that's the real key to safety training is getting that message across that we're teaching you this stuff not because it's just a rule,
Sure.
but because there's going to be consequences if you don't follow the rule. Like
Sure.
this is
Sure.
what can happen.
Right. Well, and they could be dire, right? So do you feel yourself kind of pushing against kind of that old mentality of, hey, safety's for dummies, or for weak guy? I mean, I don't know. Do you feel any resistance, or is it pretty much accepted now?
I'm very happy to say it's actually accepted.
Good.
And a lot of the reason it is because the unions and the companies at the same time are preaching the same message. And as an employee, like we all move around. I've worked at two other elevator companies. The field employees do the same thing. And as they go from one company to the next, they're still hearing the same message. And if
Good.
that same message is being repeated year after year from every company, then wow, you know what? You start to believe it. And it's a great change. It's
Good.
wonderful because it's definitely made a difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah.
made a difference.
For sure. For sure. So I'm curious if you had to point to maybe the number one root cause, right? The root cause of most accidents. What would you say that is?
So, see, that's something else Ray taught me really well. When there's an accident or an incident, you got to dig down, really dig down and find the root cause. And what you find in most very serious accidents is that there's multiple layers of failure. Like maybe the person was doing something wrong physically, they were using the wrong tool, and they took another shortcut. It's usually not one cause. There's usually like two or three minor things that add up. But in the end, my belief is the number one hazard in our industry is complacency. So when people are just getting that rut and they're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and they really you forget the consequences of what could happen today,
Right.
and you just get very comfortable in what you're doing. The repetition of doing the same task over and over again, it makes you comfortable. And that's when complacency slips in. And I want to say like 80% of injuries, if you go look at it somehow, it falls back to complacency at some point.
Sure.
At some point, somebody made a decision because they just felt for whatever reason, I don't need to do that today.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you mentioned in a previous conversation that, when people start out, right? Maybe they're a first day helper and it's like, "Oh my gosh, this is scary." Right? I mean, there's a
Right.
level of, just maybe it's discomfort, maybe it's fear,
Yep.
whatever. And yet how would you say people go from being super cautious one day to maybe, vulnerable because of complacency later on?
Yes, that's because the alarm clock goes off the same time. You get out of bed and you put the same shoes on, you drive the same route, and you park the truck in the same spot every day. And year after year after year, you do that so many times that you forget that very first feeling, the feeling you had, that knot in your stomach, the very first time you look down a hoistway and you're like, oh my goodness, that's a 100-foot drop right there. and you feel that up in your neck, you feel that in your throat. You're like, oh my God. I try to tell, especially the new employees, and when I have a brand new mechanic, somebody who's gone through all their apprenticeship and now it's their first day out as a mechanic, we bring them back in for training just because you're a mechanic now. I say, listen, listen to yourself. Don't you feel that you're nervous right now? You're scared because now you're the guy in charge. You're responsible for building that elevator and doing it on time and doing it safe and making a profit. So you can feel it right now. And they all agree. They're like, "Oh yeah, I feel it." And my challenge to them is I want you to carry that feeling with you, because 10 years from now, when I've installed 30 elevators. When you get to 31, you're not going to have that feeling. You're not going to be nervous anymore. And it's going to be, oh, I'm back at work. I put my PPE on. I drink my coffee. And today we're going to go work on the outrigger. And that fear is gone. But the fear is there to protect you, because the fear is your body telling you, hey, you're putting me in a dangerous situation. Please don't get hurt. So that's kind of the progress at how it goes from, in the beginning, you can feel it. And then after a decade, 2 decades, you're just not afraid anymore. That fear helps you stay alive.
For sure, yeah. How big of a factor would you say is rushing, especially around holidays, weekends, deadlines? What patterns have you seen there?
Yes, that's actually just this week. I was speaking with another safety director, and he just offhand mentioned it. Oh yeah, it was a Thursday before a long weekend, and I was like, yeah, isn't that when it always happens?
Gosh.
And it's really sad, but it's very true that I would say half of the very very serious injuries I've experienced, and not just in elevators, but also in the railroad, some of these really really serious injuries happen right before a long weekend, or it's in the summertime, it's late on a Friday, everyone just wants to get home. And that's when you see people, at that point, they are making a conscious decision. Okay, I'm going to take the shortcut because they see the finish line. They're like, we're working through lunch today. We're going to knock this out. I want to get out of here. Everybody wants to go beat traffic or get to the beach. And that's it's a big challenge. That's when you need to take the extra time during those weeks when you know you're going to have a vacation or a long weekend coming up, and really focus on, say, hey, listen, everybody, the danger is the same.
Right.
It doesn't matter which day of the week it is. The elevator is still going to hurt just as much as it does on a Monday. So try to keep everyone's focus, and it's one of the challenges we face.
Yeah,
Good
I
for
mean, it
you.
sound to me what I'm hearing you say is it takes discipline, self-discipline to make sure you're safe. It takes more self-discipline when you know you got a long weekend coming up, you got a holiday coming up, you got a vacation coming up. The last thing you want to do is spoil it with an accident, right? But a little extra self-discipline to just stay the course, do everything right, right? Even if you got to work a few extra hours or whatever, don't risk it by. And then if you add in complacency on top of rushing, well, you just got a recipe for disaster there. Hey there, listeners, it's Matt, and I would love to know what you want to hear more of on the podcast. If you have a topic in mind or a guest you'd like to hear from, head over to elevatorcareers.net and drop a suggestion in the box, or you can email podcast@elevatorcareers.net. The link will also be in the description below. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. Now, back to the show.
Right, exactly. No, you hit it. You're hired. You could be a safety guy. There you go. No, our last safety meeting we had for our company, that was one of the topics. I spent 30 minutes teaching just discipline. And
Right.
that was part of it. It was like, hey, is discipline a positive or negative word? You think discipline, oh, I'm in trouble, and school discipline is you got to go to the principal's office. Well, the other side of discipline is that exactly what you said, self-discipline.
Sure.
And it's a decentralized workforce. If there's no one else there enforcing the discipline, there's nothing but self-discipline. That is the
Yeah, true.
only thing keeping you from doing something wrong or unsafe. So you hit the nail on the head there. You're hired.
Yeah, thanks. Um, so you mentioned, new mechanics, but I'm curious your approach with new hires, right? Maybe right out of the box, right? Brand new. How do you make safety not just a checklist, but a real instinct and drive that home?
Yeah, there's two. I love teaching safety. I love teaching it to brand new, young, a 20-year-old. It's wonderful, but they are probably at the highest risk. And number one is because it's a very, very dangerous industry. And part of that is sharing experiences, sharing the tales and the experiences I've heard from the generations of knowledge around me about what can actually happen. So getting that first point across that, like, you can, no, you're not just going to get cut. Okay. You can die on this job, and you try to get that point across. That's part one. And then part two is that you give them a safety book, and the book has 200 pages and 400 rules. And you're like, okay, great. Here's a book full of rules. Just memorizing all those rules doesn't make you safe. Understanding why the rule is written and what the reason the rule is there for, that's the important part. So I love to tell them, listen, read the book, but ask questions. Ask your mechanic, why do we do it this way? Not just, okay, what do we do next? And then you execute. But why is there a certain procedure to get into the car top? Why is there a certain procedure for lockout tagout? There's a reason each step is there. And getting a young employee to understand the reason why we do it the way we do is much, much more important than them memorizing every rule step by step. So that's
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the why is huge in all things, right? But I think the idea to ask, right? Why is this the case? And especially the ones that seem dumb. Oh, that's stupid. Why do I have to? Those are the ones you really need to ask because you don't understand the why.
and that's another way where the industry, the workforce itself has matured in the last 2 decades. In that
Hmm.
20 years ago, a new employee walking on the job, their job was to go get the coffee, right? There and nowadays the senior experienced, a mechanic who's got the years of knowledge, they don't treat the new mechanics that way. They don't treat the new helpers that way. A new apprentice comes in, and it's a learning experience. They're really getting the on the job training, which is the only way you can learn anything about elevators. You're never going to learn it sitting in front of a screen. So if you're in the field and you have a mechanic that's not willing to teach you, you're not going to learn it there either. And the workforce itself has matured to a point now where that knowledge flow is there, and you tell them, ask questions, learn something every
Cool.
single day. And it's great, it's working out good.
That's awesome. That's really, really great to hear. So, a lot of smaller companies don't necessarily have the same resources as your current company or the majors for sure. What are some of the most important things they should be doing to protect their teams, even though they may not have a vice president of safety on staff?
Right, yes, you're right. The smaller companies don't have the assets available. Their entire office staff might be 4 people, and it's not, one person's tied into finance, one person's answering all the phones, and they don't have a dedicated safety professional on board. So in those cases, you know what? Just like the young helper, the advice is the same thing. Ask for help. The NAEC is one of the organizations that is more than willing to help, you know, help the person next to you out, help another company out with safety, because it's not proprietary. It's not, you're not going to lose a competitive advantage by helping someone else work safe. And the all the tools are out there. Now, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Somebody's done this before. And the great thing, especially like NAAC, the great thing is people are willing, very willing to help each other out. So I've mentioned the Field Employee Safety Handbook from Elevator World. That's a great resource. It's a great supplement to your company's safety program. But if you need help with that actual safety program, or you have questions about it, there's a world of experience out there. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I don't know everything. I've only been doing safety now for about 4 years. So
Right.
I ask a lot of people for help because I'm still learning, but it's great. It's a very positive environment.
For sure. And I've found that even for myself that asking questions. I mean, I had an interesting situation. It wasn't safety related, right? But I had a situation with a client in Florida trying to figure out, it was something about how to get, trying to get somebody hired, but he didn't quite have his license. And so I asked, three or four or five different people that I knew, how does this work in Florida, right? And I was just pleased as could be that every single one of them, oh, well, here's what, here's how it works. I
Yeah.
was like, thank you. That really helped. So I've found that you're right, that people are willing to help you, but you have to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's
Yeah.
you got to make the connections so you know who to ask. So don't be afraid to go out and just, just talk to people, rub shoulders and get involved in groups, get involved in the industry. It's a niche industry. It's there's not a lot of people in it. Once you get in it, if the person you ask doesn't know the answer, they'll know somebody who does. And
Oh, absolutely.
it's great.
Very true. Very true. So you had mentioned that mental health is becoming a bigger focus around safety. And so why is it so critical that, especially in construction or elevator work right now, that we focus on mental health?
Yeah, this is something I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of TEI. Very proud of Local One, the IUEC, the elevator industry as a whole. Right now is like a full court press into mental health, and for good reason. When you look at it, if again military experience, I've lost many close friends to suicide who they're coming out of our military experience. You get PTSD. It doesn't even have to be PTSD. It's just the difficulties of living in this modern world where it's a tough world out there. And you look at the suicide rates for the military veterans is insane. But then you look at the suicide rates for the construction industry, and it's right up there. It's right up there with military veterans. And that's mind blowing because you're talking multiples like 4 or 5 times above the US average if you're a construction worker. So when you really look at the numbers, you look into it, are my employees more likely to die from an on the job injury or from something not on the job, such as suicide or an overdose? And when you really break down the numbers, you the employees, the workforce, we may actually lose more people in a year to suicide and drug overdoses than we do on the job, which means it means number one, we're doing a good job with safety because people aren't getting killed on the job. But it means number two, we need to really, really focus at what's going on off the job and at home. How can we help individuals get help? How can we help individuals get their families to get help? Because it's not always the mechanic, it might be his spouse or his child. And you're carrying that with you when you go to work. And if you're carrying all this stress and the phone's ringing and it's the high school calling because your kid's getting kicked out of school again, those things are not going to make you safe at work. You're going to be distracted. And when you're distracted, that's when you could get injured or the person you're working with. So there's so many organizations out there. I think right now every company is really jumping on the bandwagon. We're all pushing mental health, and it's kind of amazing, but it's making a difference. Like I've only seen mental health now for about 2 years getting pushed in our industry, but it is actually making a tangible difference in people's lives where people are not afraid now to say, I need help.
Right.
And
Right.
that's the first step. And once you get past that, that's the hardest thing. Just saying, I need
Well,
help. And you know
just
what? You
building a culture and an open work environment where they feel like they have permission to say that is huge, right? Just because if it's safe for me to say that, well, then it's safe for me to ask questions. It's safe for me to ask about safety. It's safe for me to just be me and know that I'm okay. And that's huge. I think that's just in my experience in the corporate world. There's it hasn't always been that way. So if you can build
right.
an environment and a culture of, not only do we want you to be safe, we care about you and your family enough that if you're struggling, we want to know it and we want to provide whatever assistance we can. That's massive.
Yes, it's huge. It. It's very rewarding actually when you can help someone. And that's probably the best part of my job is when somebody comes and they ask for help and you can actually help someone. It doesn't even have to be on the job. It could be, maybe they got a financial issue or, they just need help because I've got the experience. Like, all right, here's how to set up a 529 plan so you can pay for your kids' college in 20 years, Those types of things, it makes us a stronger family as a whole. And in the end, that makes us all work safer. So,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to have an awesome job, right? But if I can't translate awesome job into awesome retirement, awesome future, family life or mental health, it's kind of for naught, right? It doesn't if it doesn't fit in the rest of my life.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's another little thing I tell the new hires, a brand new 20-year-old is like, this isn't a job. This is a career. This is your
sure.
entire future. This is day one. You're starting
Yeah,
right now. Build those good habits, but don't think of this as a job. Think of
yeah,
this as your career and embrace it.
for sure. Well, and if you were to, ask the question, how many of you came and you stayed for your entire, rest of your life? I mean, there's a high percentage that are like, no, it's what I do. It's who I am, right? It's become a part of me.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine, like, it's never comfortable, like, going from the military to railroad and then railroad to elevators. It's not a comfortable transition ever,
Sure.
but I can't imagine ever leaving elevators. Like, I'm here now. This is great.
Yep. Yep. Awesome. Awesome. Well, Mike, this has been a pleasure for sure. I appreciate all your insights. Any final words of wisdom, advice you'd give to newbies? What would you like to say as we wrap up?
Oh, that's a good one. Actually, I end all my emails with, like, a little slogan, and it says, now I'm drawing a blank. No, it says, "Do the right thing and look out for each other." Is
Love
I
it.
I I try to break safety down to as its simplest form. So
Love it.
in its very simplest form, if you go out there every day and you do the right thing and you look out for each other, that's all I can ask. And then we all go home safe every day. And I think that sums up safety pretty good in one sentence.
No, it really does. I mean, if everybody does the right thing and we're looking out for each other, I mean, is there anything else?
Exactly. That's all you need to do.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it and wish you the best as you continue to create a safe workforce there.
All right. Thanks a lot, Matt. Look forward to see you again.
Thank you for listening to the Elevator Careers podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group, a leader in elevator industry recruiting. Please visit our YouTube channel at Elevator Careers or check us out online at elevatorcareers.net. Please like and subscribe, and until next time, stay safe.